Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It is 8:06. This is our fourth hour of our 4-hour program. And if you missed the first three, well, that's okay. You can subscribe to our podcast wherever you like to hear podcasts. We're on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and I don't know, wherever else they're doing podcasts. It's a great condensation of our radio program, including our interviews broken out separately. It's a good podcast, and you should grab it so you can be up to speed on everything we talk about every morning. Coming up in 30 minutes, we're going to touch base with Frank Ray. He's a country music artist, and he's in town celebrating National Police Week, as we all are. We've been discussing it quite a bit this week. But joining us right now is the former governor of Maryland. It's Bob Ehrlich. And Governor Ehrlich, you're speaking to two Marylanders here on WMAL. Me, Larry O'Connor, and Patrice Onwuka. So let's fix this state, shall we?
How much time do you have?
That's fair.
Larry,
but
Patrice,
listen, you as former governor and a keen political observer about good governance, you have been warning about the cliff that Westmore has been running our state over, and the chickens came home to roost last night. As Moody's downgraded Maryland's bond rating, first time in over 5 decades. We have lost our AAA rating, and Westmore is blaming Donald Trump, Governor.
Well, it's the fiscal leadership blaming the president. So last year, Wall Street warned us, outside economies warned us, members warned us, businesses warned us. You have unfunded education mandate, a gigantic one. You have new hires and over-budget transportation projects and Medicaid bleeding as usual and previous wealth flight from high taxes and high regulation. So what's the plan? What do? They hit the rainy day fund, they offload on the subdivisions, and they pass another tax increase, and they claim victory. And in the process, no introspection and blaming the president. What a formula. What a formula for success. It's hard to watch, and this is a big deal. This is one of the most angst-ridden days of my life was going to Wall Street for the first time, new Republican governor, first time in 40 years, with the fiscal leadership, looking at almost $2.5 billion of deficit, and Wall Street expected me to have a plan. I've never been so uptight in my life, to tell you the truth, and Republican governors, Democratic governors over the years know this and knew this. But again, you have a very hard left General Assembly that doesn't help. And here we are. And we're staring at a special session in the fall with even more tax increases.
Well, sir, I'm glad you brought up the tax increases. I think it was, appalling when we saw the tax increases on small businesses doing business to business. I can't help but think that this is forcing a lot of local small businesses either to close their doors or to flee to nearby states where it's certainly not as anti-business.
Patrice, you can quantify that. You're absolutely correct. The priorities of the General Assembly are just fascinating to watch. They prioritize illegal criminal migrants and new spending programs and new taxes and way over budget transportation projects. And left behind, obviously, are small businesses and taxpayers and crime victims. And again, very little introspection to go with all this. Nobody's perfect. I wasn't perfect. No governor's perfect. But you saw the storm clouds, and you didn't act. And then you point fingers at the president. Give me a break. These numbers, what we're talking about, all this was baked in the pie. This has nothing to do with the president. Now, I have to tell you, this coming special session in the fall, that will have been relevant to the president and what he's done the first few months. But all this, the president had nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just noted that Wall Street and businesses were warning about this a year ago. That's well before President Trump won the election. In fact, Westmore did his darndest to try to keep him from even being on the ballot in some states. So, Governor, it sounds to me like there's no Democrat in Maryland who is willing to confront the reality here. They're all on board. So what's it going to take here to get new leadership in Annapolis? And at the very least, I know that it's hard because of districting to actually get a majority for Republicans in the legislature, but we could get a governor. It's happened. It just happened recently, and you're living proof of it as well. So what's the forecast
governors
here?
Governors are important, but governors come and go. Fiscal leadership is equally important. Nobody ever talks about that. So to answer the question, of course, that's important, of course. But there are too many suburban swing seats now held by Democrats who vote this way, and they come back after session and they go to the Chamber of Commerce luncheon and they talk moderate and it all sounds all great. And then you look back at their voting record and it's not so great, and it's negligent. And so, look, I live in the realm of the possible. I'm a Maryland Republican. You two are as well. And so what you try to do is what you can do. You look at these seats, you try to recruit good candidates, you try to fund them, you try to train them, and you got to win. So what this means in the long term, nobody really knows now. We're in uncharted territory. We haven't. This was the last 50 years, and again, Republican, Democrat didn't matter. Governors of both parties understood and understand how important this is, and the taxpayers are just digesting it now. But this means a lot more dollars in the long term, obviously. Your debt's more expensive.
Yes.
You're now just another state. You're not one of the – we used to brag. Last week we were bragging. One of 16. Now there's 15. It's not Maryland. So this is a big deal. It hurts us. And whether it becomes, Larry, that political issue in this next cycle, we'll see. It certainly should.
Well, can you speak to us a little bit more about the special session coming up in the fall? What is expected? I mean, you mentioned tax increases, but is this in response to job cuts from federal workers? Can you expound?
Yeah. Well, it's out there. You talk to the members. They're denying it, and then they're saying it might happen, it might not happen. The fact of it is storm clouds are here. It's raining. So, again, you can only raid the rainy day fund so much. You can only offload on the subdivision so much. You can only pass another tax increase so much. And that's, quite frankly, without the introspection, without the structural redesign that Wall Street expects, that the taxpayers have a right to expect, you're just going to have more of the same. So, again, it's hitting Maryland. And I suspect you're going to have that special session, and you're going to hear about new tax increases. There's a whole long list of tax increases. You saw the reports this session, and it's ordering a la carte. We'll take A, B, and C, and we'll leave D, E, F for the next special session. So, again, we are in the barrel here, and we'll see what happens. But without the sort of structural redesign that needs to occur in Maryland, this is just going to continue to reoccur, especially the unfunded mandates on the education end, these huge transportation projects that don't pay for themselves. This is a bad dream. It's a recurring bad dream. We've seen this movie before, and again, we need an election to fix it. Whether that occurs, who knows?
We need to communicate also to Maryland voters, those who helped put you in office and helped put Larry Hogan in office,
exactly.
how this affects them. It sounds esoteric. It sounds very sort of, we lost our AAA bond rating. But people need to realize how that affects the state and how that affects their personal finances over the short term. That is
really the point. That's the underlying goal here. Rainy day fund, what's that? You're offloading on the subdivision. What does that mean? These moves have real repercussions. It means less money in the taxpayer pocket is what it really means long term.
I've already tried to cajole you to run, and you use the cop-out that your wife is so domineering that she refuses to allow you to do it, which I think is a heck of a beta message, Governor.
Where did she get that bad rap?
You gave it to her. But Larry Hogan has been very active and very public in his criticism of his successor, Wes Moore. Have you had conversations with Governor Hogan about whether he may throw his hat in and run for a third term?
I have not.
If you had, would you tell me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have nothing to hide. This is not. As I said, my focus, to the extent it remains in Maryland, is going to be helping some of these really strong candidates we've had and will have this cycle in these marginal seats that honestly, should go are.
I appreciate that because, frankly, one of my criticisms of Governor Hogan is he didn't do enough of that. He won, but he didn't do enough to grow his party, I think, while he was governor when he had the chance. But you don't need to comment on that. But let me ask you, is there anyone else? Is there anyone else who could be a successful candidate against Wes Moore, or is it really Larry Hogan?
I don't know at this point is the honest answer.
All right. But it seems like obviously there's systemic changes that need to be made here, and that has to do with the makeup of the legislature. But the short-term solution, at the very least, to stop the bleeding, needs to be a new governor.
Yeah, it's a makeup of the legislature, and it's a restructure with regard to the fiscal realities of your state, especially with a new national administration that most likely means less dollars coming to Maryland's coffers. We've had this conversation in the past. When you're so reliant on the federal government, and you have been forever, and everyone has said, don't become that so reliant on the federal government, but you just didn't pay attention over decades now. And now finally you're paying the price for it. Lack of planning, lack of structure, lack of interest, negligence, and that's how monopolies operate. They don't have to care because they don't have to care.
That's right. And how pathetic as a governor of Maryland or Virginia to sit back and just say, wow, we got all these federal jobs and all this federal money. So in other words, you're relying on the other 49 states to do your heavy lifting for you. It's pathetic. All right, Governor, we got to leave it there.
Virginia has a lot of federal employees, and they're not hurting like we are.
That's right.
Bingo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Someone has to explain why everything's okay in Virginia and Maryland is hurting like this. Thanks, Governor Ehrlich. Always good to talk with you, sir.
Take care.
It is 8:18.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Absolutely insane and disturbing story coming out of Frederick, Maryland, where we have a local NIH lab. This is a lab where they study COVID and Ebola and other incredibly dangerous viruses, right?
Okay.
And as WMAL's Barbara Britt reports, a lover's spat turned into one of the absolute worst nightmares that you can imagine. Take a listen.
Oh, no.
I've been scared by very little in the last 5 years, but this one really scared me.
NIH Director Jay Bhattacharya telling the Vince show a contractor cut a hole in the biocontainment suit of a fellow scientist during a, quote, vicious lover's quarrel inside the NIH-run lab at Fort Detrick.
The lab the NIH runs is a BSL-4 lab. BSL-4 means like the highest security level.
The FBI is now investigating the incident. The NIH director says the lab will remain shut down until the safety culture is corrected. Barbara Britt, WMAL and WMAL.com.
Patrice, how bad does your relationship have to be that you end up, I'll show him. Is there any doubt that it was the woman who did this to the man in the relationship? I mean, I guess I shouldn't jump to conclusions.
You're jumping to conclusions. That said, this is why office romances can go really bad. I mean,
thank you.
Obviously, I think cheating is involved. Whoever cut the hole, I think that cheating is the reason for it. Because if things were, even if you were having just an argument at home, you're not going to try and kill your significant other by letting them get exposed to a dangerous disease and, frankly, everybody else. You just, you have it out in the parking lot. But this is when there's another person involved. That is what drives people to the most extreme ends.
By the way, some newspapers and magazines were first blaming, Doge and temporary cutbacks from the Trump budget on, this report that a pathogen could have invented. And now it turns out the real situation here, because we didn't have all the details of this story when it first broke. And now we understand that the security breach was internal. It was a lover's spat.
Yes.
And a spurned lover is going to do some pretty outrageous things. I've seen Taming of the Shrew, but this does that. When you actually purposely violate somebody's protective gear so they might catch Ebola. By the way, this also affects the rest of us, because if this person had caught Ebola, then they're out in the public. They could,
they're going shopping, they're going to the movies,
everywhere. Absolutely.
Man, this is
absolutely insane. So the lab
Yeah.
had to go offline because of these safety issues. It looks like the public is not at risk. They're going to continue to investigate this. It is a criminal investigation at this point.
So can we say that if the culture they're working on at baseline, no office romances, period. No office romances. And if we find it out, then you're fired, both of you, right?
I have to go through all these HR trainings about, inappropriate
Yes,
sexual relationships and romantic relationships. What's the worst that can happen on this job? Somebody says something inappropriate over the air and embarrasses her. I hope they're getting this kind of training over at NIH. It's like,
Apparently
okay,
not.
I thought we didn't have to tell you this, but don't try to infect your spurned girlfriend with Ebola, okay? That's frowned upon. Can we? Is that a basic that we could all agree on?
I think that's a minimum that they could cultural changes they can implement today.
What is the most? Have you ever been in a toxic relationship where when you broke up or when you're in the process of breaking up, you actually thought, oh my God, this person could actually do something like insane?
Thank God I've never dated anybody that insane, but I know people who have. I know people who have been in situations like that.
I used to date like actresses and.
Are they really, really over
singers
the top?
and dancers on Broadway? They're insane. They've chosen Broadway musicals as a profession. Are you kidding me? What was I thinking? Thank God.
What was the worst? Have you had your car keyed or tires slashed?
No comment at this time. I'll save that for the podcast. I'm going to monetize that terror. It's 8:24.
Making sense of your world.
I agree with you 100%.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
There's a lot of us out there.
Making sense of the news.
All right, coming up, Frank Ray, country music artist, is going to be here to talk about National Police Week. Plus, is Jesus coming out of the basement? We'll explain more. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 8:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Patrice, like in your country music. Now, how would you feel?
Listen, I like country music too, yes.
How would you feel if you were like pulled over for speeding and the cop coming up to your window was singing like that? Because that's Frank Ray, country music artist and retired police officer from Las Cruces, New Mexico, joins us now. Talk about Police Week. That's your typical path to Nashville. You're a cop, and now you decide you want to sing kick-ass country music.
And I got to be honest with you, that scenario that you mentioned has happened before, and I may have let people go on a ticket if they went and checked out a concert.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
See?
Okay, now we know.
Unbelievable. Two sets of laws in this country.
That's exactly it. No, honestly, it's just, I think music was always my passion, and I found myself in the world of law enforcement, and, I blinked, and it feels like 10 years went by, but it gave me a lot of life experience, and I gained this huge family that I never thought I'd be a part of. Yeah. And, and I had all their support, and whenever I decided to hang it up in 2017 to pursue country music full time, and it's been great ever since.
That said, your allegiance to those who wear the badge and wear the uniform obviously continues to hold your heart because you're participating in Police Week activities this week, as is our station WMAL. By the way, good time to remind everybody, go to WMAL.com. You'll see an opportunity to donate to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. Tell me why this resonates with you, obviously, as a former cop, yes, but also this is about those families, isn't it? Those families who have been left behind.
Yeah, and I think the National Law Enforcement Memorial Fund is one of those organizations, more so an institution that's been around for the longest time, that's really always put its best foot forward in helping those families when they have to unfortunately deal with an officer that pays the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. And it's very easy to feel alone in a time like that. But that's when I think you really see that family that I'm talking about in law enforcement really come together, and it helps the family through the grieving process and through the financial hardships that lay ahead and things like that. And not only that, the memorial really just it does just that. It memorializes the men and women that pay the ultimate sacrifice in the most beautiful way possible, and with their name on the wall. And it's a place, something really tangible that the family can always go back and kind of feel like they're with their loved ones.
Yeah, I'm every time I hear of a fallen officer, my heart goes out, because I recognize you guys put your life on the line every single day you step out of your front door, and you never know whether you come back home to greet your kids, greet your family members, and it's such an honor to serve the country in that way. I'm curious about how, if you've noticed there's a difference in treatment of police officers, respect for police officers. I mean, we've come through years of just the most people just denigrating anyone who wears a badge for no reason, calling them racist, and et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that there's been a change in the atmosphere when it comes to police?
I think there's slowly a shift. Obviously, when there's a heightened, call that winds up on social media or something like that, is out for sort of public speculation, is when you see sort of this, tension that's been kind of dormant really kind of rise up. But I think now, because, there has been an open conversation and open dialogue, I think that's an important thing, in shifting the public's perception. And to your point, a lot of people do kind of take this for granted. I often remind people that nobody ever calls 911 when things are going great, and when you need the police, they will be there. It doesn't matter, what race you are. It doesn't matter what your sexual orientation is. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. If you call 911 and you need help, the police will show up and support you, no matter what it is. That's the oath we take. And so it is heartbreaking to see sort of that public perception come out and people, denigrate police officers. But I think at the end of the day, the police, this is a calling, and they do it whether or not the public supports them. It is difficult, sure, but I think that's where we lean on each other, and we lean on organizations like the Memorial Fund.
And while we're on that topic, Frank Ray, we're speaking with Frank Ray, country music artist, and we're talking about National Police Week. Frank is a chief ambassador for the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. Do you think the tide has turned in our pop culture? Listen, I think that the American public were always supportive of cops, but there was a time there where there was so much intimidation, there was so much social pressure, that I think that those who wanted to step forward and say, no, I'm not buying these lies about law enforcement and all these systemic problems that we are being lied to about, they were intimidated. But I feel like now people feel emboldened. It's like we're not going to have it anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that has a lot, and obviously that has a lot to do with the election of President Trump as well, where, people that are pro law enforcement or do kind of have those more conservative values really step up and say something. And again, not to politicize the matter, but you do see that that's where a lot of the shift is, where a lot of the divide comes from in the country, is people on social media attacking each other. And the police, again, I feel have always been sort of this objective, sort of innocent bystander, if you will, that is open to sort of the court of public opinion. But yeah, I mean, I think with the shift in social media and everyone having a platform, I think everyone's got a voice, and both sides are being heard right now. And so, it's really hard right now to take sort of a gauge of the public temperature. But from the outside looking in right now, it looks like people are starting to kind of speak up a little more about their support for law enforcement.
Excellent. Hey, we got to leave it there, Frank Ray. But thanks for joining us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
Past service and now your current service continuing. I'm not going to thank you for your service for country music because I'm a classic rock guy, but I'm happy that you're lending in your support and your profile to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund.
Always, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Matt. It is 8:43.
All right. Thanks, folks, for sticking with us for O'Connor and Company. We had lots of great guests today. Now coming up is the Chris Plant Show. Hope you guys stay around. Have a fun, safe, and sunny weekend.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington.